Nice to meet everyone virtually. I am Catherine Villasenor. I am the Data Analytics and LMS Specialist in the Office of Digital Learning. And today I'm going to be presenting a wrap-up of the sessions we had during this AI Playground series. And we're going to talk a little bit about Copilot as well and some prompt engineering tips and tricks. Perfect. This is a little bit about what I just mentioned that we'll be going over today. Now let's go ahead and get started. So I just wanted to mention briefly the AI syllabus language that we have available if you want to scan this QR code or go to the URL right below that. UT Tyler gives the professors the flexibility to choose how much AI they want to allow students to use in their class. And through this link, it provides some language that professors can integrate into their own syllabus depending on that level that they choose. So if you can go here, you can see whatever fits best for your class and choose that language if you wish to. Okay, so the first series that we had was the image generation, and it was presented by Emily. And she mentioned how there are different tools that we can use, such as Copilot, Midjourney, Adobe Firefly, OpenArt, among others, that can help us create images for presentations, for classes, but also for visualizing data for research. You can get really creative with all the use cases that this tool has. And just making a presentation more interactive, more visual can really enhance students' understanding and enjoyment also of the class. This is an example of a prompt that she used, which was to create a banner for a college science class with the text "Welcome to Chemistry 1305," and this is what it came up with. So it's a really nice visual and it's really quick to have those images ready. These are some other examples that she used. So with any AI tool, the more specific you can be, the more context you can give, the more details of exactly what you want that you can provide, the result's going to be better. And we're going to go a little bit in more detail over those prompt engineering tips and tricks shortly. But these are some more examples of what you can create with these tools. The second tool we talked about was Suno, which is uh, a AI tool that helps you create songs depending again on prompts that you provide. And this tool is great for digital media and production courses, also psychology courses where you can have students maybe create a song with certain lyrics or certain beats and see what impact that has in certain people, how that changes their behavior, their actions, their perceptions. Also, you can use it in STEM or more analytical or computer science classes to analyze how the AI tool is working, how the songs are produced, what patterns is it following, the algorithms, anything of like the back end process of how this tool works can also be a good use case. And in the full presentation, which is uploaded on YouTube, we go into kind of use cases for different disciplines. So another thing we mentioned was, for example, language classes, because you can ask it to create a song with very basic vocabulary in any language. In this case, we did Spanish. So just playing that song, repeating in your head, it becomes catchy and it's a good way to learn more vocabulary as well. So with all these tools, you can really be as creative as you'd like to and find very out of the box ways to use these tools. Yes, there's a question.
Are
Um,
these tools free?
so some aren't. Most of them, I will say, have a free version. So for example, Suno does have a free trial. I think how the free trial works is that it gives you 5 credits per day. So you can create up to 5 songs for free. If you want to create more per day, you need a paid subscription. But those reset every day. And for example, if you use Copilot, which is the university's recommended large language model, The university already pays for a subscription. So we do get the premium Copilot subscription with your UT Tyler email address. And you can ask it to create graphs or visualize data as well. It works very similar as ChatGPT. So you can definitely use any graphs or any creations through Copilot.
Is that linked to Canvas or is that just separate?
It's
On
separate, but you can import anything that you create through Copilot or download. You can upload that into Canva, sorry, but that would be manually. You would have to do that.
okay, thank you.
Of course. If there's any other questions, feel free to just jump in and unmute. Okay, now we're moving on to Poe, which is a super interesting tool that has it's brought a lot of attention every time we talk about it because you can create your own chatbot based on the information you provided. So in the example that C presented for the full for presentation, he created a class bot based on the syllabus and the class material. That's information you feed to the chatbot. And you have a link that you can share with students or put in your syllabus where students can access it 24/7 and ask questions. And the responses will only be from that data that you fed into it. So your class content, your syllabus, so they can ask, how many assignments does this class have? When is the first assignment due? How much, like, what's the percentage of the final exam on my grade? Any question like that in the chatbot will give it an answer based on that data. So it's a great tool. You can get super creative in how you use it. Steve also mentioned an example where I think it was a literature class where the professor kind of fed a book that the students had to read as an assignment to Poe, and then asked the students to interact with the characters as if they were talking to them. So it was like, why, I don't know, why did this character choose to do this or react in a certain way, or what were their motivations? And the chatbot will respond as if it was that character based on the story. So you can get very creative in the ways you can use these tools. And I really like that example. Um, the other presentation we had was about active learning and personas, which Scott presented, and he kind of talked about how if you give ChatGPT or Copilot, and Scott, feel free to jump in and add anything, but it was about giving it kind of context, creating an environment, setting the stage for the type of responses you want to get from the chatbot, and it impersonates whatever description you give it, and you can have a conversation as if you were talking to that specific character.
Yeah, I think we kind of learned, and actually there was good conversation about this during the session that, you don't want too restrictive of a persona. So maybe asking some of these large language models to represent actual humans that used to exist, and it'll sometimes be more restrictive and might not give you as good of the back and forth conversation as if you said, I want you to be someone like this person. And so, yeah, it's definitely a prompt engineering game and balance that reveals itself pretty quickly. And then yeah, so the debate thing and just practicing explanations is pretty fun. Asking it to take a certain position, and you can even be so specific as to say, I want you to hold that position. Until I give you enough compelling information to maybe change your mind or whatever. That's great. And then we've done I think there's some YouTube channels that, are like, explain it to me like I'm smart or something like that. But what we were thinking about in the explainer was maybe, so if you're doing this individually, it's very easy for someone to, say, okay, look, I work at a, regional university, explain it to me like I'm, an employee at a regional university, right? But if you have, a group of students, this is still like an in-person activity you could do to say, all right, let's agree on some characteristic or some familiarity that we all have, right? So, maybe most of the class has lived with a roommate or something like that, and so if you can find some sort of, or they're all interested in, and most of the students are interested in, you know what's happening with our soccer team this fall. And then they say, explain it to me as if I'm a particular athlete, or if I'm a biologist or whatever, and it'll just take and give all those examples in a really specific context, which is a fun way to, help explain sometimes ideas or content. And especially if you're doing this guided, I think in the examples we looked at, most of these LLMs do a pretty good job, but it's also fun to kind of look at, okay, were there any assumptions, and be able to kind of walk through some of that. So those were I think the broad, or I should say maybe the general areas where we're looking at it from an active learning standpoint. Thanks, Catherine.
Well, that was great. Okay. And yeah, this is an example of Poe and kind of how the AI is going to answer based on the information you gave it. So in this case, it was Edgar Allan Poe, and students were kind of asking questions like, what inspired your stories? Where do you get your inspiration? And it's really interesting to see the responses that can it come up with. Now, LUMA. LUMA is pretty similar to Suno, but it's more so for video editing or video creation. You can create videos, so you can use it to edit videos that you already have, and you can also create images like the example we have here. But you can create, like mentioned, kind of supplementary video materials without having to get into the weeds of video editing or video creation, or be like specialized in that. This tool kind of does that work for you just based on a prompt. Now we have a full session on Turnitin AI Detector, but just briefly, this is a feature of Turnitin that is new, and it works very similar to what you're probably familiar with in the plagiarism detection. But now it's trying to look at content that could be created by AI. And it does make a differentiation, like you can see, between if it's fully AI generated or if it is generated by AI, but the student did paraphrase that. And it gives you the percentage. It is not 100% reliable. And we've kind of played around with it, and we've realized that there's websites that are like humanizers. So you input the AI content and it kind of humanizes it for you. And this tool didn't detect it, like it didn't think it was generated by AI. So there are ways to kind of trick it if you're really trying to, but we will say that a lot of times those humanizers, what they do is that they find similar words, and it doesn't always fit well in what you're trying to say. I think Scott gave an example of, it was a paper that it was using allies. I think it was talking about kind of like a war or revolution, and the humanizer changed it to partners. So if you're reading the student's paper, it's not going to make sense that they would use the word partner in that context. So those are, we still obviously recommend that you read the paper, you question the student, you figure out firsthand if the student really knows what they're talking about, if you have suspicions of it being created by AI, not only relying on the detector. But it is a good starting point, and it is kind of a quick way to get an idea of how the text was created.
If I can add in, there was a question we got yesterday about where this shows up in Turnitin, and so it shows up on the plagiarism report in really almost the same place. So you'll receive your similarity match like we always have with Unicheck. It works the same with Turnitin, and there'll be an AI section. So it's all in one place, and it's again, it's highlighted, just like the similarity. You just don't get a link to the source because there's no source to link to.
And now Copilot, like I mentioned briefly earlier, it is the university's recommended LLM, because the university does pay for the kind of enterprise subscription for all of UT Tyler users, and that gives you an extra layer of security and data protection, which is really important if you're using academic data and ensuring it's all safe and stays within the environment. So this is what the university strongly recommends we use. you can still use ChatGPT, you can still use any other tool, just kind of be careful of what data you're giving it, and if you can use Copilot, but still open to use whichever tool you would like to. For Copilot, you do need to make sure that you are signed in. So once you Google Copilot and open the page, make sure that in the top right corner you are signed into your Tyler email address. You can still use Copilot if you're not signed in, but you don't get the enterprise benefits of the subscription. So just make sure that you're always logged in when you use it. And finally, some prompt engineering tips that can be used in any of the tools we went over, or any other of the thousands of AI tools that there are out there. These tips can apply. So one thing we recommend is being specific and clear. So clearly explain what type of answer you're trying to get. Be as detailed as possible, give it as much context as you can. Like, this is a university class with this many students, and this is what I'm trying to convey. This is what I feel like students struggle with understanding the most. So I want to make sure this specific concept is very clear. Like, as clear as you can explain what you're trying to get out of it, you're going to get better responses. So yeah, touch a little bit on providing context and breaking down complex queries. So for example, if you're giving it a data set and you wanted to create a graph that looks at all the data, you might want to first ask it, can you clean the data, for example? Can you remove these fields that aren't needed? And then from that data set that it cleans up, you can ask, can you create a graph? And then from there, you can add, can you add this context or this information to the graph? So just breaking it down instead of just giving it a big ask to start can be beneficial, because sometimes if you start with a big ask, it can get confused or not really understand what your end goal is, and you might not get what you're looking for. So breaking that down can be a good way to go about it as well. If you can use examples, that's great as well. And providing like I don't know, maybe the structure that you want the response to look like. Or if you already asked a similar query in the past and you like the result, you can also input that result and be like, I really like this. Can you give me a similar response, but about a different topic? So using examples is great. In specifying the desired output format is also great. If you wanted to break it down in bullet points, if you want it to be a paragraph, if you want it to be a letter, if you want it to be in a Q&A format, quiz, just whatever you're looking for, be very specific on that as well. And don't be afraid to refine your prompt. If you're not getting the exact answer you're looking for, just start over or add to the prompt, or sometimes just wording things different helps it make more sense to Copilot, ChatGPT, whatever tool you're using. So don't be afraid of redoing that as many times as needed. And also asking for step-by-step responses. So if you're asking for an explanation, if you wanted to break down a response so that it makes more sense for students to understand the process behind something, it's really good at doing that. I do that a lot when I ask it to explain something to me, and I'm like, but how do you get to this conclusion? What was the process behind it? What formula was used? Just any of that, you can also ask it, and you get a better idea of where the responses are coming from. So these are some examples of general prompts and kind of what the refined prompt would look like. So in the first one, we can see that it starts very general, just creating a lecture outline of the specific topic. But a refined prompt would be like, create a detailed lecture outline on this specific theory from this specific author or researcher, and you specify also what key concepts you wanted to include, and you're also adding that you want an example for each. So you're very clear on the type of response you're looking for and the structure of that response. Second one is, for example, in a research assistance, you can start with, help me with a literature review on digital learning, or you can specify from what years you wanted to look at those research papers, and that you wanted to specify on the impact of digital learning tools on student engagement, and you also wanted to add a summary of those key findings. So make the information very digestible, make it relevant from new sources and not just sources that might not be relevant anymore. There's a lot of specificity there. Another example is student support. So you can ask to provide advice for students struggling with online learning. It's very broad. Or you can ask it to list practical strategies for students to improve their time management and focus during online learning sessions. So if there's something specific that you know students are struggling with, not to assume that the AI is going to know that that's what it is. So letting it know, hey, this is what I'm observing, this is what I need help with, some strategies, and just being, again, very detailed is going to lead to a better response. And finally, for administrative tasks, which is a great use case of AI, you can just ask it to write an email to students about the upcoming seminar, or you can provide those details about that seminar, about what it is, when it is, how they can register, instructions. All of that is going to make it easier for the AI to draft an email that is going to be clear on the student's end as well. So here are some links. If you have any questions, you can email canvas@uttyler.edu. You can find the recordings of some of our past AI playgrounds also in this website, this link, which I will copy and paste shortly in the chat so you have it. We also have an AI resource page where you can find a lot of our pocket workshops, kind of blogs that we wrote about different AI tools, and this QR code for the AI syllabus, which I can go back since it's locked there in case you still need it. Are there any questions?
I was just going to
Mhm.
ask about Poe. You said it was good for like mock debates or asking about a character. Is that
Mhm.
all text input, or can students actually do like an audio input where they're, because I was thinking about like practicing presentations. Could they practice a presentation to an audience?
That's a good question. So I think in Poe it is just via chat, but in ChatGPT you can do audio. And with
Okay.
ChatGPT, you could also give it a text or even just tell it, like, I don't think in ChatGPT you would need to necessarily feed it the ebook, for example, or PDF. You can tell it based on this book and this character, answer these questions or practice an mock interview with me. So I think in ChatGPT you don't need to provide that information because it has access to that information already, and you could just speak to it in audio and practice that if you'd like to. So the benefit of Poe is when you don't want it to access the whole internet to respond. So
Okay.
you're kind of limiting that. With ChatGPT, it is still open to whatever's out there in the internet. But for this specific use case, you can let it access everything in the internet. So it wouldn't really matter.
Thank you.
Of course. Thanks for your question. As long as no one has any other questions, go ahead and close out the session. But like I said, if you have any questions come up, email canvas@uttyler.edu. We're happy to answer them. And thanks everyone for joining and the participation. I hope you get good use of these AI tools.